Hi there, my name is Kara Ford, and I am going to talk to you today about the 7 traditions in the field of communication theory. And we are going to identify these traditions and what communication theories are, and categorize them and see what they what we can discover about each one of them. So, author M. Griffin, in our readings, tells us about a University of Colorado professor, Robert Craig. Robert Craig had 7 traditions, or named 7 traditions of communication theory. So, as Griffin states in our reading, our communications reading this week, he explains that these theories offer distinct alternative vocabularies and describe different ways of conceptualizing communication and problem and practices. So, in communication theory, we have 7 traditions of communication theory: socio-psychological tradition, cybernetic traditions, rhetorical traditions, semiotic traditions, sociocultural tradition, critical tradition, and ethical tradition. And we're going to review each one of these. So, when we take a look at socio-psychological tradition, it is known as Graham cited in our books, communication as an interpersonal interaction and influence. So this is kind of like the objective perspective that we studied previously in chapters 2 and 3. There's always a truth that can be discovered through this observation. There's always like a cause and effect to the relationship. And also, it often analyzes behavior and the effects and traits that are carried by those behaviors. The second theory is cybernetic tradition. This is kind of a system of processing. So, scientists at MIT, Norbert Ware, coined the word cybernetics. And this is a theory composed of complex systems. And this is where you see a lot of scientific feedback. We want to know the where, how, what, when, and studies are done just touching each little bit of information to find their final reaction or final answer through all the feedback that they get through their studies. Then we have rhetorical tradition, and rhetoric communication is artful public address. So that means through speech. It's leadership, it's power, it's persuasion through communication, and it is used to kind of create a feelings of goodwill that cause a persuasion of one crowd to listen to the communication by the leader and kind of follow, would be an example. And then we have the semiotic tradition. This is known also by Grimm as the communication as the process of sharing meaning through signs. So when we talk about this one, we talk about this is the study of signs. As you can see here in my example, I have this little cute girl and she's smiling. We know she's happy. That's a sign. There can be signs, verbal and not verbal, or signs or that vocalize, not vocalize, but they're nonverbal symbols that like shh or waves, smiles. So when studying this one, we know that it is the use of signs. Sociocultural tradition, communication is a creation and enactment of social reality, which is defined again by Griffin. The structure of cultural languages that shape what we do. That's the study of sociocultural tradition. So theorists believe that people reproduce their cultures throughout this tradition of communication. So how we are perceived is how people act through us, and this can be verbal or nonverbal. And here I just show kind of an example. You may have these little boys at this school that are raised a certain way, and then you have these other little boys that are raised differently, and so when they meet up, they reproduce their culture and pass this on by telling what they have seen or what they have lived through. And then we have a critical tradition. So this is communication as a reflective challenge of unjust discourse, defined by Griffin again. And this philosophy is based on one that of your experiences instead of like studying. So something that you've been through, you have knowledge of it. It argues that issues are created through an outside society than individually. So these kind of can be contradicting. These can be like as you can see here in my example, through thought, through interpretation. So that's critical tradition. Next, we have ethical tradition. And this, defined by Griffin, again, is communication as people of character interacting in just and beneficial ways. So this is kind of accepting the responsibility and advocating through the truth, through research, and we strive to understand and respect, and so it's kind of shows everybody's on an equal playing field. That we have now talked about the 7 traditions in the field of communication theory. I hope this made sense to you. But we have defined each tradition and kind of where they fall and what they look like. So thank you.